Happy Monday, everyone. This is Martha with Nature Niche. And for this week, I think I'm going to post in two sections because I have a lot of important information to share. I want to talk about a mystery bird disease and what's known so far, and also get into the details of bird feeding station hygiene. So I have had a lot of customers the last couple of weeks. They've been reading about a mystery bird illness in neighboring states and asking what should we be doing about that. So this mystery bird disease was first reported in late April and May in the mid-Atlantic region, and it has sickened and killed hundreds of songbirds in the eastern United States. The cause of this disease is unknown. It has been noted that the initial reports of affected songbirds started coming in and overlapping in timing as well as location with the emergence of broodex of the periodical cicadas. A direct link between the cicadas and the disease has not been substantiated, however. So scientists really don't know what is causing this particular issue. So what do you need to look for? The symptoms include swelling of the head and especially around the eyes. And the eyes can also have a crusty discharge. So when I spoke to Michigan's Wildlife Disease Laboratory, one of their folks described it as like the birds having kind of a Cheerio around the eye. Lots of swelling around the outer edge and then crusty material. And here's a photo of a blue jay, and you can see kind of where there was swelling and that crusty material accumulating around the eye. So this was from a bird that was turned in, I think, in the state of Kentucky. Besides those symptoms, there are also neurological problems with the birds, and those might include wing tremors, kind of stumbling around, head shaking, general weakness and being uncoordinated, and appearing disoriented, or in some cases appearing to be blind, having difficulty flying. And ultimately, those things manifest themselves in malnutrition. So the bird's not being able to eat and being thin and scruffy looking. The species that have been reported to date with these symptoms, a lot of the reports are from juvenile birds, but it has also been observed in adult birds. And initially, there were lots of reports coming in about common grackles, blue jays, European starlings, American robins, and then later on also northern cardinals, house sparrows, gray catbirds, Carolina reds, and northern flickers. Our wildlife disease lab did stress, though, that it's possible the disease could be observed in other songbird species, so it's important to keep an eye on your feeders and as you're doing bird surveys and things like that. So as far as location goes, reporting earlier this spring kind of started in the Washington, D.C. area, and then Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia, and then later in Pennsylvania, Delaware, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, and Indiana. And it's important to note that many of these states have county-specific or even statewide directives for folks to take down their bird feeders and bird baths. So to make sure what I had researched was still accurate, I spoke with Michigan's Wildlife Disease Lab last Thursday and confirmed that no cases of this disease have been reported in Michigan, and that currently there is not a directive for everyone to pull down feeders and baths in Michigan, but until a cause of the disease is understood and scientists being able to understand how contagious it might be, how it might spread, the Michigan DNR is recommending that feeders and baths be thoroughly disinfected once a week as a precaution. And that's more frequent. Common recommendations usually are cleaning every 2 to 4 weeks. So disinfection involves soaking your feeders and baths in a 10% bleach solution for 15 minutes. And that 10%, that means you need 1 cup of bleach to 9 cups of water, or a healthy 1 3/4 cups to 1 gallon of water. And now more than ever, it's important to be good environmental stewards and responsible when feeding wild birds and other wildlife. I think it's really important to understand that our feeders and our baths concentrate wild animals more than they would naturally, and that brings increased risk of diseases spreading through our local populations. So different bird feeders sort of have different pros and cons. Platform feeders or hopper feeders with wide or distributed perching options are nice because they spread out the birds, but they also tend to collect feces as the birds eat and go to the bathroom. Tube feeders are nice in that bird droppings usually fall to the ground, but it does concentrate the birds onto fewer perches, and eye and mouth secretions can be transferred to the small ports for feeding, and it forces the birds to be feeding out of the same locations. So no perfect solution there. I just think really important that we understand when we're feeding, we are concentrating, and we have a responsibility to keep our feeders and baths disinfected. So here are the things that you can do to help our wild bird populations in general, and as we wait to see what happens with this mystery bird disease. So the first is to keep your bird feeders and baths disinfected. Again, Michigan DNR is recommending weekly cleanings at this point. And if you're not able to keep up with that weekly schedule, swap out duplicate feeders. Put your ones that have been up for a week away, put out new ones. Same thing with baths, or pull them down altogether if you don't have time to keep them appropriately clean. Second, with each feeder and bath cleaning, it's important to rake up the seed hulls and feces and dispose of those from underneath your feeder. Lots of ground feeding birds, that'll help keep them safe as well. Third, spread food offerings across multiple feeders, and in that way there's less opportunity for sick birds to interact with healthy birds. Also observe and report around your feeders and baths. If you see any sick or dead birds, make sure that you report your sightings to your state wildlife agency. In Michigan, that's the Department of Natural Resources. They have an online page called Eyes in the Field, and you click on disease wildlife observation, and then fill that out, or you can call the lab directly at 517-336-5030. And they wanted me to stress that it's okay if you don't know the species of bird. If you're seeing that collection of symptoms or other strange behavior, just try to provide good photos. If you can capture a video of the behavior, if they're a minute or less long, they can be uploaded on that Eyes in the Field website as well. Also, if you see a sick or dead bird, make sure you pull down your feeders and your baths immediately. Disinfect with the 10% bleach solution and keep them down for 2 to 4 weeks to help social distance your birds, spread them out, and hopefully allow the sick individuals to either die or disperse. So collecting and submitting dead, diseased birds is also really helpful if you're willing to do so. It's suggested that you use a freezer bag and invert the bag over your hand and pick up the bird like this, like you would, pet waste on a walk, something like that, and then pull the bag over your hand, and that way you aren't touching the diseased bird. And then bird samples are very fragile. It can be very difficult to get an accurate sample for growing out bacteria or a fungus or whatever the disease causing agent might be. So put it immediately on ice in a freezer and contact your wildlife disease lab to arrange submitting the sample as soon as possible. But that'll certainly help us understand what diseases are where, and hopefully get us some answers on what's causing this new mystery bird disease. And then lastly, I just wanted to reiterate this point once again. It's something I say in a lot of my posts, but one of the best things we can do for our birds and other local wildlife is to plant native plants in our landscape. Those plants help feed them naturally, whether it's providing fruit and seeds or host plants for the insects that they like to eat. But providing that natural food source across our landscapes is the best, most natural way we can support our local wildlife. Have a good week, and I'll be providing the details of how to disinfect feeders and baths next.